My name is Willie Joe Glenn High. Annie Joe is my sister. She is the sixth child from the bottom and from the top. So she was a middle child. We call her unique because she was actually one that got both. She got more of the X factor of both my mama and my daddy. My mother, her name was Annie Matilda, and my daddy's name was Joe Willie Franklin, and my daddy's name was Joe Willie High. My mother's parents were named William Franklin and Della Franklin Brewer. Della Brewer Franklin was her mother. And then the grandparents was Louis Franklin and Matilda Davis Franklin.
Her sisters and brothers.
Well, sister, yeah.
Big Mama's sisters and brothers.
Oh, Mama's Annie High, Annie Franklin High. Siblings are Benny Jewell, who was 108, actually 109 this month. Maddie, Emma, and Simi, and William was her two brothers, all Franklins. They all have deceased. Amy was the last of the five siblings that she had. Their parents, the Brewers, was all from Arkansas. The Franklins all was from Oklahoma. They was an Indian with the Indian background. They was they was considered a Blackfoot Indian from Oklahoma. Uncle William Franklin was considered. His daddy might have an uncle that was named William Franklin too, but Mama's daddy, William Franklin, was from Oklahoma. Now he brought them to Texas from Oklahoma. And as I said, my mother's parents all came from Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas. They moved to Freestone County. Some people don't know that was one of the only free counties in Texas. If you was a slave someplace else, but if they came to Freestone, they could still be free. That was the only free county in Texas, was Freestone County.
How long was the only free county?
That was the only free county that's in the state of Texas that you could
go to?
Yeah, if you was free, if you were not a slave, or even if you was a slave, you could come to Freestone County and work yourself to freedom to be a free person.
Oh, what year was that?
Oh, that was in the early 1800s.
Wow.
Yeah, early 1800s.
That's amazing.
See, my granddaddy was born in 1863, but he has never been a slave. None of our family on my mother's side or on my daddy's side, or our granddaddy's side, Will High has never been a slave, and William Franklin has never been a slave.
Okay. We covered the highs.
Okay.
So we just covered
Yeah,
Big
Franklin.
Mama.
But I'm just saying, there's no one in her linkage has been slaves all the way back. On Annie Joe High, no one in her family has been listed as being slaves.
Okay.
It's one of the things that I like to add about my sister. And she had the characteristics of my daddy. She had the characteristics of my mother. Now, some of us didn't get that characteristics. She was bold. She was very intelligent. She should have gone to college, but she chose another path. And if she had a penny, I had half of that penny. Somehow we go to the store and buy something we could split. That's how close she and I was. She was advocate for the kids in school. She was bold enough to go in the 60s up there and deal with the integration issues, such as the language that they had in school books was not acceptable to her. She and I took dragging me along with her though, and we went up there and we talked to the principals and the superintendents in terms of language that was used in the textbook. And one of her kids was involved in the issue. Sylvester, I'll name him because he was the one. He was involved. We went up there and talked with the superintendent, principal first, and they wasn't going to let him graduate. And she didn't stand on the table, but she let them know that he deserved a punishment. But they won't make him repeat a school grade. And we decided that was too harsh for the issue in which they were dealing with. So we resolved that. She was, as I said, she was very, very outspoken in terms of whatever she took on to challenge. She went to jobs, dealing with the situation in terms of integrating the schools, and she took on the task, and she did the best she did, the best of all of what everybody else was just standing back up ready to speak out for. I can't say enough about her because of what I feel that she encouraged me to finish. When I say she, Annie Jo, encouraged me to actually stick out Prairie View, because I went for 2 years, and she said, you want to do something different. I said, yeah. So I took out, I have an industrial engineering degree, and some of that was an encouragement because she didn't like can't. She didn't like the word. I said, well, I can't. She didn't like that word, and I think that instilled me to tell my kids, there's no such thing as can't. Can't is not in the dictionary. Can't say, because of circumstances. She worked through a lot of circumstances in terms of what she didn't have. As I said, she would take on a job, and days after that, she was running the place, recruiting people to help her if she had any issues with doing it. That's just the way she was. I named one of my kids after her. I couldn't give her that first name, but the Joe came in there, and I was able to name her Amy Jo rather than Annie Jo. And so that was, I don't know, I use her every day in my life, even now, in terms of thinking, if I need a laugh, I can get a laugh. If I need the strength to do things a little different, I can think of her, and I kind of tear up sometimes, and not in sadness, but in joy, because she impacted that many people in terms of her life and her spirit. And I wanted to add something now she thought she could play basketball, and she thought she was a basketball star, If 3 points had been something that you could do, that it was in her time, she would be a good 3-point artist right there. And that was my sister. I can't say enough about it. I can sit here and talk 2 hours about my sister. And I might repeat some of it, but I never would get, I would never be ashamed of anything that my sister done.
Can I ask you a question? What is let's say, what's another characteristic that you can see that lives on through you and through your kids, that what you've done with your kids that you learned from your sister? She
was a disciplinary. I don't think she got to the point where she would whoop. But she also will make you do some things to where you would rather got to whooping than, sometimes she got a whooping, but sometimes you had to hug, sometimes you had to kiss. She'll make you kiss. So, I don't know, I do a lot of that. I don't whoop. And I got that from, I've never seen, Your mama whoop. Yeah. No, I ain't say. I never saw it. No, she might have, but she didn't. She didn't whoop. She didn't whoop you in front of me.
Any experiences as a kid, teenager, anything, you spoke about
Like
her
childhood
giving you
stories.
money
Oh yeah, that's what I said. When
and
I was in
childhood stories.
Yeah, when I
y'all were distant.
yeah when I was in college, I would come home, and she would be one of my first financial stops. And I said, Joe, I need this, this, and this, and if she had it, I had it. And if she'd say, well, when you need it, when do you need it? I say, well, I need it before I go back to school. She'd have, it wasn't a lot, but if I asked her for whatever I could need it, she would work around, go somewhere and borrow it from me, and I'd have that $10 or $15, $20 what I need to that she would ask. Now, as a child, she was as I said, I am a few years younger than her, so I wasn't quite in her running class. I was a little bit younger than she was, so I didn't get a chance to go out at night with her. So at home, she was my protector from some of the bullies that want to mess with me. Now she would stand up to her brothers if they won't try to mess with my twin brother. Now she would be our advocate on that.
What was the rule in the home for when the teenagers went out with the girls versus just the guys?
Well, we didn't have with her. If my brothers went out, they had to take the girls, so they had to be back at 10.
Mm-hmm. But they went by themselves.
If they went by themselves, they could stay until 12. But if you took, we didn't have any girls that our age, so we took Pearl and Dale. We had to be back at 10. That's just with them. As I said, if Annie Jo and Louise went with Alfred and Louis, they got to be back home at 10. Now, 10:01. They can 9:59. That's all right, but 10 o'clock was questionable. You say you almost were late. But they had to be back at 10.
What was the relationship with Granddaddy and Mom with the NAACP?
Now, Daddy belonged to the Joe Willie High, my daddy. He belonged to NAACP. And I spoke with my William today, and he said, well, Annie Jo didn't have to belong to the NAACP. She was self-willed enough to go up there and try to correct whatever the wrong might have been with the kids. It don't have to be her kids. They didn't have to be the child of Herbert Jones and Annie Jo Jones, High Jones. If it was a kid that was she felt harshly, maybe they would deserve a punishment. If it was undue punishment, she would go up there and meet with the people at the school, from the superintendent all the way down. I mean, with no hesitation. No of her safety, she would go. She would go.
What was her relationship with her dad?
Well, she was, and I'm not sure the real of the whole thing, but she didn't do no wrong to Dad. I mean, she could speak freely with Dad, where none of us had that opportunity. And she wasn't disrespectful, don't get me wrong, but she could speak her likes and dislikes to my daddy, and he wouldn't, if he thought she was right, he would condone or do what she said. But otherwise, I mean, she had I'm not saying they was that much alike, but she was a very to the point person, and that's what my daddy was. Joe Willie High, to give. But she was very direct. Annie Jo was very a direct person. You didn't have to guess or make an assumption about and that was my daddy's quality. Now, she was mild as well, which was part of Annie High's qualities of So she had a combination of both daddy's boldness and straightforwardness and my mother's High to deal with things in a more non-indirect way. And so she had that two qualities that, and as I said, I never heard daddy scold at her. That was funny. In my age, and never heard him scold at her. And I'm not sure why. I don't, all of why. Because as I said, but I never heard that. Now all the rest of them that I remember, he'd never scolded her. And I think, I'm not sure if he had to, she might have been just that. Oh, okay, yeah, well, Annie Joe got burnt in a fire. And from that point on, Daddy treated her as a queen. I mean, she couldn't. And even before then, she couldn't do any wrong. She couldn't do any wrong. I mean, we didn't, it was not a jealous thing that we had because she protected us. So if we got in trouble and we say, Annie Joe did it, or we say Alfred done it. So we got out of it, so it was a plus for us because of the way she was treated. Because we didn't have to. Now, whether it was a bad burn, I'm not sure, but it was a life-threatening kind of a situation that Daddy just kind of blamed himself, and she had royalty blood in her after that. Annie Joe was equally a worker and could do anything that the boys were assigned to do. She rode horses, she picked cotton, she picked cotton, she did everything that the boys did. She didn't want to be an exception of that. Now, her sister Louise got a little by on that, but Annie Joe, she did her hobbies, did everything that the boys did. She wanted to hunt, she wanted to fish, and she did the work in the fields just like the boys did. And it was no exceptions. I mean, she didn't want the exception of saying that she was if you will, a sissy. She wanted to do what the boys did. If you would look at the James Jones all the way down to Earl, all have strived to be the best they can be. And despite of the circumstances, the businesses, they want to be self-employed. They want to have their own businesses. They want to be their own self. They want to, if you would think how many in the family was firefighters, how many families owned their own computer companies, how many was nurses, registered nurses. I mean, this situation, I feel, came from the desire to be the best you can be. And I think that she did that with her kids. And maybe it wasn't necessarily all there when they was coming up, but just the spirit of, sometimes it's just like a gene. You inherit certain genes. They inherit certain genes, and I think that was instilled in just the birth of being a birth child of Annie Joe, is that I want to be the best I can be, and I think that was instilled from her.
What about the slave mentality, and as far as school is concerned, her thoughts about college that she instilled in you and Pat?
Now, with her, she never had a slave mentality. She was a slave master, not the slave. She was a master. Education has been one of her key points in terms of I can say she instilled in me, and I know it transcended to her kids because all of them had an opportunity to go to college, and most of them maybe not necessarily finished, but they had that fortitude to do what they can do to land good jobs, if you would look around. And Janet Joe had that. Now, she had 3 brothers in college at the same time, and she chose to do what she did. I mean, not all her choice, but, but I know she wanted to go to school. And I think she did decide to go back after, some of her children were born, decided to go back and take some schools. But she instilled that in her kids through genes. It might not have been words per se, but that's just, they picked up that all from her genealogy to be successful in life.
Were the Highs ever slaves?
There was, as I said earlier, the Highs have never been
You did say.
never been slaves.
Okay.
If you look in all the archives, that's the Hyde came from England. The name, the original Hydes, all was England born.